Hello? Alright, so in this video, I'm going to review all the snipers in Phantom Forces, and I'm also going to include ammo types and conversions. Each sniper will receive a rating based on how good it is, but more importantly, how well I think it serves its intended purpose. For example, the Scout is one of the most difficult snipers to use, and a lot of people will not be able to do very well with it. But I'm still going to give it a high rating because it does its job as a one-shot sniper very well, so a lot of these ratings are going to be dependent on what type of skill level I think the snipers are meant for. The last thing I'll mention is that these are all my subjective opinions based on my experiences, and you probably won't agree with me on everything. Anyways, let's get started. The first sniper is the Intervention. As a starter gun, I think the Intervention is a really strong sniper, and it's a great option for players of every skill level. The Intervention is known for its 150 stud one-shot torso range and its amazing muzzle velocity, making it easy to use in close, medium, and long range. On top of that, it has great penetration and a pretty good mag size. The only issue I have with it is it feels a little bit slow to use at times, and it's hard to take full advantage of the one-shot torso for that reason. It only has 38 RPM, and the reload is also super long, so you can't be as aggressive with it as I would like. But aside from that, it's amazing, and I'll rate it an 8.5 out of 10. The 375 CHATAC conversion on the Intervention is a great alternative for more aggressive players. By lowering the one-shot torso range to 100 studs, the gun can fire 7 RPM faster and the muzzle velocity becomes even better than it already was. I personally like using this conversion over the normal Intervention because I prefer the higher fire rate over the further one-shot torso range, but I think it's equal to the default Intervention in terms of rating, so I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10 as well. The next sniper is the Model 700, but I'll just call it the R700. The R700 is pretty much a jack of all trades. In my opinion, it's the most well-rounded sniper in the game and doesn't have anything amazing or bad about it. It has a one-shot torso range of 87 studs and a 50 RPM fire rate, which is a pretty good combination. I just wish it had better muzzle velocity, and yeah, you can put on the heavy barrel, but it kind of ruins the scope and speed. Overall, similar to the Intervention, I think it's a great sniper for any skill level, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. The 32 ACP conversion on the R700 is a really interesting conversion that turns the gun into a mini Scout. It's super fast and has 90 RPM, but the downside is that it does very little damage to the body and requires 4 torso shots at range to kill. The other massive downsides are the low muzzle velocity and penetration, which both make this gun very hard to use compared to other headshot snipers. If you want to use a gun like the Scout but don't have the credits, then it's nice to have the option to use the R700 with 32 ACP instead. Because of the bullet drop and penetration, it's definitely worse than the Scout, but it's still pretty good for what it offers, so I'll give it an 8 out of 10. The next sniper is the Dragunov SVU, and the SVU is really more of a DMR than a sniper rifle, but if you do consider it a sniper, then it's probably one of the best ones out there. It has 150 fire rate and can one-tap head up to about 180 studs, and 2-tap limb all ranges. The fire rate is really what makes this thing amazing, because if all you need is a headshot or 2 body shots at longer ranges, you can essentially just semi-spam it like you would with a DMR. Compared to the other snipers, it takes a lot less effort to get kills in my experience, because a lot of the time at longer ranges, it's literally just easier to try and hit 2 body shots instead of a single headshot anyways. I'm gonna give the SVU a 10 out of 10. The 9.6mm conversion on the SVU is an interesting option that gives it both a one-shot torso range and a one-shot headshot all ranges. The downsides are that it shoots at only 100 RPM and has only 5 bullets per mag, and it also has extremely bad bullet drop. I think because of the bullet drop and the low mag size, it's hard to make use of the potential that this gun has. If it had more muzzle velocity, it would definitely be a lot better, but for some reason, it's still fun to use, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10. The next sniper is the AWS. The AWS is the one and only sniper in the game to be suppressed by default, which makes it pretty fun and satisfying to use. It has really great fire rate, 10 bullets per mag, and a 50 stud one-shot torso range, believe it or not. The one downside is that it has 2500 muzzle velocity, so the bullet drop isn't great and makes it somewhat difficult to use at long range, especially on moving targets. In my experience, it's not that bad once you get used to it though, and it even makes it feel like a fun challenge. I would say it's more suited for more experienced snipers, but it could also be good for players who want to improve their sniping skills. I think it's great, and I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10. The next sniper is the BFG-50. I know the BFG is slow and only has one bullet, but the fact is it has amazing damage and great handling, so if you're able to play around the fire rate, then it can be really good. It's obviously not the best option out there if you can consistently hit headshots, but some people are simply going to benefit way more from having a one-shot torso all ranges than they would with a lower damage sniper that shoots faster. For those people, I think the BFG does its job really well. It's also great for trick shotting and has 10 studs of penetration, which makes the gun just really fun to use. All in all, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Also, I'm not going to review the ammo types for the BFG, the Hecate, and the M107 because I don't really think there's a reason to use any of them. The next sniper is the AWM. The AWM is a pretty average sniper rifle in my opinion, similar to the R700, but a little bit worse. It can one-shot torso up to 90 studs and has a 45 RPM fire rate, which is a little on the slower side. It also only has 5 bullets, which can make the gun feel even slower because you have to reload pretty often. It's got pretty good muzzle velocity though, which is a nice redeeming trait, and it makes sniping from long range not too bad. Overall, it's not the greatest in my opinion, but it's still well-rounded, so I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. The 338 Norma conversion on the AWM is a direct upgrade, giving it more muzzle velocity and penetration, and adding a whole 1 stud to the one-shot torso range. There are no downsides, so it'll earn a 7 out of 10. The 308 Winchester conversion, or the AWP conversion, is a nice upgrade to the AWM. It gives you 20 more fire rate and 5 more bullets in the mag. It decreases the one-shot torso range to 55 studs and gives it slightly worse muzzle velocity and penetration, but the extra fire rate and ammo definitely make up for it. If you compare this to the AWS, it has a further one-shot torso range, more penetration, better bullet drop, and a faster reload. And if you equip the suppressor, it's better in literally every way except for the reserve ammo. The AWP conversion is honestly just a great sniper, and I would recommend it to anyone, which is why it gets a 9 out of 10, just above the AWS. The next sniper is the TRG-42. The TRG-42 has the unique ability to one-shot to the limb up to 60 studs because it does have a 100 max damage. While it's a nice feature, I don't think it's enough. If we compare it to the stock intervention, the TRG has less bullets, less ammo, less muzzle velocity, less penetration, and nearly the same fire rate. So if the intervention can one-shot torso up to 150 studs, the TRG cannot make up for the downsides with just a 60 stud one-shot limb range. It can't even one-shot torso past that range. I think for the TRG to be more balanced, the damage ranges need to be a lot better on it, or it needs to have a torso multiplier to give it a one-shot torso range similar to the interventions. While it isn't bad per se, it's pretty underwhelming and honestly really boring to use in my experience, so I'll give it a 5.5 out of 10. The 338 Norma conversion on the TRG is just a downgrade in my opinion. It lowers the one-shot limb range to only 30 studs and tries to make up for it with 5 more RPM and slightly better bullet drop and penetration. But if the whole point of the TRG is the one-shot limb range and it gets reduced in half, I don't see a good reason to use this over the normal TRG, so I'll just give it a 4 out of 10. The TRG S-Kit is a slight improvement to the normal TRG though. For just the price of 200 muzzle velocity, the gun picks up a torso multiplier that adds 20 studs to its one-shot torso range. It's only a small improvement though, and still doesn't give me a great reason to use the TRG, so it gets a 6 out of 10. The TRG-22 kit is the best conversion to use on the TRG in my opinion. It makes it very similar to the AWP with a few trade-offs here and there. The conversion gives it a 10 bullet mag with 60 RPM. It also removes the one-shot limb range, but gives it a one-shot torso range of 67 studs instead. And like I said, it's very similar to the AWP, so I'm going to give it the same rating of 9 out of 10. The next sniper is the Mosin Nagant. The Mosin is my favorite sniper, and for very good reason. It has 70 RPM with 3000 muzzle velocity and good penetration, so it's one of those snipers that performs really well at long range. It isn't able to one-shot to the torso, but that's okay, it's mostly meant for headshot sniping anyways. I also like the fact that it can two-shot to the body at range, so I don't always have to worry about hitting headshots to get kills, which makes it a little bit friendlier to use than a gun like the Scout. In my opinion, it's the most fun sniper to use, and I would definitely recommend the Mosin to anyone who wants to improve at sniping, so I'll give it a 9 out of 10. The 8mm conversion on the Mosin is not a great choice though in my opinion. The thought behind this conversion is centered around having a far one-shot torso range, so it's able to do that up to 100 studs. But there are so many problems with it. It can't one-shot headshot past 150 studs, and even if it could, it still wouldn't be that great because it only has 1500 muzzle velocity, so sniping at long range would be pretty difficult anyways. It also has a very slow reload because each bullet gets reloaded individually, and the conversion also decreases the fire rate to 50 RPM. To me, it just seems like an R700 that can't snipe at long range. It can be fun to use on close range maps like Metro for example, but there are better options out there, so I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. The next sniper is the Dragunov SVDS. The SVDS is the second semi-auto sniper rifle so far, and I think it's pretty good. It can one-shot torso up to 70 studs and has 60 RPM, and the fact that it's semi-auto makes it pretty viable for more close-range aggressive sniping. The one issue I have with the SVDS is that it has some pretty weird handling that makes it harder to aim for some reason, and because it doesn't have a bolt, sometimes I think it should be able to shoot faster than it really can, which can throw me off. Other than that, it's definitely a nice sniper, and I think it deserves an 8.5 out of 10. The 9.6mm conversion, or the TG3, turns the SVDS into a similar sniper to the Mosin with 8mm. It has a 100 stud one-shot torso range, but it can only one-shot to the head up to 175 studs. It has a little bit better bullet drop and fire rate than the Mosin with 8mm, but the handling is a lot worse and it only has 5 bullets in the mag, while the Mosin can hold 10 with the extended mag. So I think for this type of gun to work, it needs to have better handling and even faster fire rate to be worth having such limited range for a sniper. So I'll give it the same rating as the Mosin with 8mm, 5 out of 10. The 10/3.5mm, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it, conversion on the SVDS is one of the best snipers in the game in my opinion. The conversion gives it low damage at close range and higher damage at long range, so you're only able to one-shot to the head past 70 studs, meaning you should avoid using it at closer ranges at all costs. But once you're past that threshold, it's pretty much just a better scout. It can one-tap head and two-tap limb at 90 RPM with great muzzle velocity. If you're looking to headshot snipe at long range without having terrible body shot damage, then this gun is absolutely perfect for you. I would recommend this to any skilled player who's looking for something different to play with because it's probably the most slept on sniper in the entire game. This conversion gets a 9.5 out of 10. The next sniper is the M1903. I see the M1903 as a pretty average sniper rifle that's very similar to the AWM. It has a 75 stud one-shot torso range, but shoots at 55 RPM and has great penetration. So compared to the AWM, I think it's a slight improvement. You can also equip the air service mag, which gives it a 25 bullet mag with a longer reload. But don't be fooled, because even though it says the RPM stays the same with this attachment, it actually becomes slower. With or without it, I think the M1903 gets a 7 out of 10. The next sniper is the K14. The K14 is also pretty similar to the AWS. It has 70 RPM, which is 5 RPM faster, but the damage is a little bit worse. It can only one-shot to the torso up to 40 studs and requires a 3-shot body at long range. Meanwhile, the AWS can 2-tap limb at range no problem. And because it only has 2500 muzzle velocity, it can be somewhat more difficult to use at long range than other snipers, and I think that combined with the fact that it can't 2-shot body at range makes it a little bit worse than the AWS, even if it does have 5 more RPM. But it's obviously still very good though, and I think I'll give it an 8 out of 10. The 308 Winchester conversion on the K14 is a slight downgrade, I think. So for 5 less bullets in the mag and 10 RPM, the gun gets better damage by having a 20 stud further one-shot torso range and can 2-shot to the body at range too. It also gets better muzzle velocity and penetration as well. It actually performs very similar to the M1903 if you think about it. To be honest, I don't think the trade-off for less RPM and half the mag size is worth it, but the upsides are pretty good, so I'll give the conversion a 7 out of 10. The next sniper is the Hecate II. The Hecate can be thought of as an intervention BFG hybrid. So compared to the intervention, it does shoot a little bit slower, but it easily makes up for it by being able to one-shot torso all ranges and having a lot better penetration. The reason I think it's much better than the intervention is that because both are slower snipers, you should be sniping at longer distances with them. With the intervention, you're kind of forced to play a bit closer range than you should because you don't want to waste that one-shot torso range. But because of that, you can get caught up in situations with too many enemies near you and you don't really have the speed to fight them off with just the intervention. But with the Hecate, you don't have to play close range at all and you can just stick to long range as much as you want while making good of that one-shot torso range. I think the Hecate does what it's meant to do extremely well, and I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. The next sniper is the FT300. The FT300 is hard to review because it has way too many conversions, but if you don't have the conversions or the marksman kit, then it's pretty okay. Compared to the intervention, it has less fire rate, less muzzle velocity, less penetration, and while it does have a 115 stud torso range, that's also less than the intervention. It does have really great handling though, and you don't have to worry about a long reload since it only has one bullet in the mag. Overall, it seems like just a downgraded intervention in my opinion, but it's still pretty fun to use and it's very unique, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10. A setup I like to use on the FT300 is 6XC with marksman kit and the integral suppressor. With this setup, it has 10 bullets in the mag with 45 RPM and it's able to one-shot torso up to 110 studs, which essentially makes it a direct competitor to the intervention with Chaytak. While it doesn't have that amazing muzzle velocity or penetration that the intervention has, it has a few more bullets in the mag and way better handling in my opinion. So I'm going to give this setup an 8.5 out of 10. The 22 LR conversion on the FT300 or the R3 Racer RS is another unique option that this sniper has to offer. It has one 50 bullet mag and can shoot at 55 RPM, making it really fun to try and get multi-kills with. The one thing is that it doesn't do great body damage, so it's a headshot only sniper pretty much. It also has almost no penetration and you need to put on the long barrel to avoid having really bad bullet drop. So as far as headshot snipers go, it isn't the best option out there. Again though, for some reason it's just really fun to use, and if you're really bored with the rest of the snipers, then you might as well give this one a try if you have it. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. And I know there's a lot more conversions and setup choices for the FT300, but I simply cannot review them all. And I think the setup I gave earlier with the 6XC, the integral suppressor, and marksman kit is probably the best setup anyways. The next sniper is the M107. The M107 did recently get nerfed and it isn't quite as good as it used to be now, but I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. The M107 has a sweet spot range that gives it a one-shot torso kill between 100 and 250 studs, and anything outside of that range will not one-shot to the torso. I think that the range is actually pretty big, and if you have a little bit of map knowledge, you can probably find spots where nearly everyone you'll see will probably be within that one-shot kill range. And you can also play very fast with it as long as you don't equip the extended mag and kind of learn how the recoil works. So in my opinion, the M107 can still be really effective, but it's just hard to execute with. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. The next sniper is the Steyr Scout. The Scout is another one of my favorite guns, and it's commonly known as the best sniper in the game for high skilled players. It rewards you really well for being able to hit headshots by having 85 RPM while doing very low damage to the body. But for Scout users, the low damage shouldn't really be an issue, and if it is an issue for you, then a gun like the Mosin or SVDS with 10mm will probably be better options. But for what the Scout offers, it absolutely delivers, and I'll give it a 9 out of 10. The 5.56 conversion on the Scout takes the gun even further by reducing the body shot damage even more, but giving it an even faster fire rate. At 100 RPM, this conversion is in my opinion the best way to use the Scout, because you won't be going for any body shots anyways, and you might as well optimize its role as a headshot sniper. There are a few more downsides such as less penetration and lower muzzle velocity, so just make sure that you use the heavy barrel while using this conversion. Overall, this conversion just allows the Scout to be its best self, and it gets a 9.5 out of 10. The 3.76 Steyr conversion on the Scout is a quite interesting option indeed. It gives the Scout a 50 stud one-shot torso range and better muzzle velocity, but it completely ruins the body shot damage at long range and gives it only 4 bullets in the mag. With only 4 bullets, it's really hard to make good use out of this gun, especially because the empty reload takes almost 5 seconds. So while it's a good idea, I think it should maybe have like 6 bullets to be really worth using, because it's just very difficult to get into an actual rhythm while using it. Still, I like the idea and it's very unique and surprisingly fun to use, so I think it's a 7 out of 10. The next sniper is the WA-2000. The WA-2000 might possibly be the other most slept on sniper in the game. It's semi-auto and shoots at 120 RPM while being a one-shot head all ranges and 2-shot torso all ranges. I don't know if you realize how unbelievable that is, but it is extremely good. The only sort of downside it has is only having 6 bullets in the mag, and sometimes it does have that wacky handling, but those things don't even come close to degrading the value of what this sniper has to offer. It's amazing, and I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. The 7.5mm conversion on the WA-2000 is just as good as the regular gun, if not better. This conversion gives it a 68 stud one-shot torso range while still being able to one-shot head all ranges at 90 RPM. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous how good this conversion is. 90 RPM is faster than the default Scout, and this can one-shot torso up to nearly 70 studs in 2-shot limit range. It's crazy good and also gets a 10 out of 10. The 300 Win Mag conversion on the WA 2000 is sadly a big disappointment compared to the other two versions. While it isn't technically bad, it's just an SVU but worse in many ways. It can only one-shot to the head up to 130 studs, which is 50 studs less than the SVU. It also has 4 less bullets and slightly worse bullet drop. The only advantage it has over the SVU is being able to fire at 160 RPM, which is only 10 RPM faster anyways. Like I said, it isn't bad, but it's not nearly as good as the SVU, so it gets a 7 out of 10. And finally, the last sniper is the NTW-20. The NTW has a unique ability to one-shot to the limb up to a ridiculous range of 238 studs, and it also has a ridiculous 20 studs of wallbang penetration. But the major issue with this sniper is the mobility, because you aren't even able to scope in while standing up unless you're close to a ledge. So that makes it pretty difficult to use, and you pretty much have to camp the whole game to get kills with it. But I really do have to admit, the camping strategy with this gun works pretty well, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. The 14.5mm conversion on the NTW is perhaps the worst conversion in the game. Definitely do not use this conversion because it decreases the one-shot limb range to only 50 studs, and it removes the one-shot torso all ranges. In fact, it can only one-shot torso up to 200 studs. I don't really care that it gives you more penetration and more muzzle velocity and better fire rate. The whole point of the NTW is to camp, and when you can't even one-shot torso at long range, there's no reason to camp anymore. This conversion is awful, and I'll give it a 2 out of 10. Last but not least, the 20mm conversion on the NTW is a really fun conversion because it's able to one-shot to the limb at all ranges. So there's no such thing as hit marking with this gun unless the game breaks, which to be fair happens more than it should, but still. You also get 35 studs of penetration, which is way too much, honestly, but I mean, it's fun. The big downside though is only having 1 bullet in the mag, but that's honestly fine because it's meant for camping anyways. And another good way to use this gun besides camping is for trick shotting. And by the way, it actually completely changed the trick shotting community forever, but you know, that's probably a topic for another day. Either way, this conversion is meant to be the ultimate solution for people who can't aim at all, and it does its job very well. So I'll give it an 8 out of 10. And there you have it, my rankings for every sniper in the game. Please, please, please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments because people usually have different opinions. Anyways, thanks for watching, and good night, but most importantly, good morning.